Hello, everyone. Hope you are doing well, and welcome to another reading comprehension passage. So, here you would find out one of the reading comprehensions, and the direction for question is what? Answer the following questions based on the information given below. Well, let's go through the text first and try to understand what this text is all about. Mm, if you look into that, the text begins with what? Test is the most common trope when talking about the intellectual judgment of an object's aesthetic merit. Test became a major concept in aesthetics. However, the roots for theories of test stretch back as many things to do. To Plato and Aristotle as a condition for sentient beings, touch is the main component of test since the tongue must touch what it tests. So the idea that test can be used to make judgments was present earlier. As the embryonic idea for the more robust theories of test, Plato, Aristotle, and the other ancient Greeks did not have any specific notion of test as a means of aesthetic judgments. However, many of their ideas inspired the later developments of theories of test. Plato's metaphysical beliefs, especially his view of the perfect forms, had an acute influence on the latter. New Platonists, even on those who did not specifically believe in the area of forms, the traditional understanding of Plato holds that there is a heavenly area or realm where the perfect forms of reality exist. Whether or not Plato believed in a literal area of forms is open for discussion, but it seems clear that he believed in perfect versions of everything we experience on earth. These forms are like the templates of reality, and reality is therefore less perfect than these forms. To reach this higher beauty, one must rise to it through a dialectical method, as Socrates learned from Diotimine Symposium. Almost like ascending stairs, one uses the lower beauties of the world to climb up to the higher area. To explain, we start with the physical beauty, move to intellectual beauty, and then arrive at a spiritual or perfect beauty. Aristotle, like Plato, did not have a concept of test per se. The quest was to uncover the principles of beauty rather than believing real beauty existed in another world. Aristotle wrote that beauty was a property of objects, it was related to their size and proportion, while Plato's view is that beauty has the same nature but with the different degrees in different objects. Aristotle seems to hold the idea that beauty's nature varies with the different objects or types of art in which it is found. Therefore, the beauty of an object might relate to that object's purpose, right? Though he never directly says so, more important to Aristotle's view are the concepts to form and unity, as form and unity are necessary for knowledge in the strict sense. So they also provide a kind of knowledge in art as an object imitates something else. While Plato believed that art diminishes the knowledge of something to an almost unrecognizable degree, Aristotle holds that the imitation helps the idea become simpler and therefore more easily understood. The imitations can be useful, sometimes necessary step in obtaining knowledge, and the imitation, though not always complete, is correct. Rather than rising to some higher form of beauty beyond this physical world, Aristotle seems to have a more experiential approach to discovering and judging beauty. Now we have just read the text. Now, what we understood actually, we understood that the passage discusses what? The concept of test, isn't it? The concept of test in aesthetic. Tracing its a historical development back to Plato and Aristotle, it outlines also how test became a key idea in evaluating what? Evaluating evaluating aesthetics, right? Aesthetic. Aesthetic merit and notes the ancient roots of this concept. It contrasts Plato's metaphysical approach, which posits the existence of perfect forms, with Aristotle's more empirical approach, which sees beauty as a property of objects. Beauty as a property of objects. Property of objects. isn't it? Property of objects, right? Now, we understood that. Let's move to the main idea of this text. The main idea of the passage is to describe how the concept of test, how the concept of a test in aesthetic has the historical roots in the philosophies of Plato and Aristotle, right? So Plato and Aristotle. Plato and Aristotle, each of whom offered distinct perspectives that influenced later theories of aesthetic judgment. Now, let's move to the next one that's called as a tone of the text. So the tone of the passage is nothing but a scholarly, and you can also say that informative, informative, informative. Isn't it? Why? It aims to educate the reader about the historical and philosophical background of the concept of taste in aesthetic. So therefore, the tone is scholarly, and you can talk about means informative. Now, if I talk about the style of the passage, so the style of the passage is academic, and you can also say that expository in nature, expository, right? And comparisons of philosophical ideas. It uses technical language appropriate for the audience familiar with the philosophical concepts, right? Now, if you talk about the text that can be broken down into different part, the first thing we can draw introduction to test in aesthetic, where we understand a test is common term used to describe intellectual judgment, intellectual judgment, right? So of aesthetic value, it become an important concept in aesthetic over time. So the origins of the idea can be traced back ancient Greek, ancient Greek philosophers, Plato and Aristotle. Historical context and ancient roots, you can say that Plato and Aristotle did not have a specific concept of test as used in later theories. However, their ideas significantly influenced the development of these theories. Now, if you talk about Plato's contribution, so Plato's contribution depends upon what? The belief, metaphysical beliefs, right? Particularly the notion of perfect forms influenced later aesthetics. The forms represent perfect versions of everything in reality. So Plato's dialectical method involves ascending from physical beauty to higher spiritual beauty. And we also talk about Aristotle's contribution. Aristotle focused on the property of objects such as size and proportion to define beauty. Not like Plato, he believed beauty varied with what? Different objects, isn't it? Aristotle emphasized form and unity, which are essential for both, right? Uh, for both knowledge and Aristotle representation. He argued that imitation in art, you can talk about simplifies and clarifies ideas, supporting in the understanding of beauty. By comparing these two philosophical perspectives, the passage highlights what? The foundational ideas that shaped modern theories of taste and aesthetic judgment. Okay, I hope you understand what the text is all about. Let's move to the question. So the question asks you, all of the following, all of the following describes what? Plato's metaphysical stance on what? On the topic called test, except. So it means we need to find out one of the option which will be considered as the um, except best question. It's we need to find out one of the options that doesn't describe Plato's metaphysical stance on test. Let's look at the each option. The first option said transcendental view of beauty, positing its non-existence in a celestial area of perfect forms. Second is called as an epistemological framework, wherein beauty is apprehended through a dialectical assent. And three, subjectivity of aesthetic judgment, implicating test as the arbiter of beauty. Then the fourth one is existential dimension of beauty, elucidating its existential essence as a reflection of divine. Now, if you talk about that, uh, The question asks here what the question asks us to identify the option that does not describe Plato's metaphysical stance on test. So if you look into that, uh, if we say that transcendental view of beauty, right, which is given in option one, of beauty positing its non-existence in a celestial area of perfect forms. This option suggests that Plato's metaphysical stance does not believe in the existence of perfect forms in a celestial area. According to Plato, however, he does believe in the existence of perfect forms, which include the form of beauty. Therefore, this statement doesn't align with the Plato's view. So, therefore, we can eliminate this option. Now, if I talk about option two, epistemological um, framework, right, wherein beauty is apprehended through a dialectical assent. Now, this option indicates that Plato indeed proposed an epistemological framework where one assents through dialectical reasoning to apprehend the form of beauty. This aligns with Plato's philosophy, right? So, subject, in that case, we consider that option two could be the answer to it, right? But let's see that. Uh, Option two stated what? Epistemological framework wherein beauty is apparent through a dialectical as accent, isn't it? Or assent. In that case, you can say, um, if we talk about it, this actually aligns with Plato's philosophy on what test. So if we go to the next one, which is stated about subjectivity of aesthetic judgment, implicating test as the arbiter of beauty. So Plato did discuss test as a means to assess aesthetic merit based on the form of beauty. So we can consider that option three is also aligned with Plato's philosophy. Four, existential dimensions of beauty, elucidating its existential essence as a reflection of divine. Plato viewed beauty as having existential dimension, isn't it? And as a reflection of the divine. This also aligns with the Plato's philosophy. Now, in that case, option two, option three, option four aligns with what Plato's philosophy is all about. If you look into the option one, it is the considering as the correct answer. Why? Because it states that Plato's metaphysical stance denies the existence of perfect forms in celestial area. However, Plato's philosophy actually does what? Affirms the existence of perfect forms in such an area, including the form of beauty. So therefore, by process of eliminating and understanding Plato's metaphysical beliefs, option one can be called as it doesn't accurately uh, describe Plato's tension or tension test, right? Hence, the answer should be what? Answer should be option one. Uh, okay, answer should be option one. So I hope you understood this. That's all. Thank you.